Welcome to Unreleased Gizmondo. I'm going to cover the rules, then jump right into it. The rules for inclusion are simple. There has to be some proof that the game was in development, be it an article in a magazine, known copy of a prototype, a retail order sheet, an interview with a developer, etc. As we covered the Halo situation in the last episode, it's time to look at games Microsoft acknowledges as being in development for this platform. This is Retro Impressions, Unreleased Gizmondo 2. Now on to the games. Age of Empires was a massive announcement for the platform. At the time, it was a growing and incredibly popular PC series, with the original release selling over 3 million units. The game was a real-time strategy in the vein of World of Warcraft, though set in a historical setting. The player picks an ancient civilization and runs their affairs starting with the Stone Age through multiple other periods. By 2003, there were 5 games in the series, and a port of the original was available for Windows mobile devices, those mostly being PDAs. That game included the Rise of Rome expansion and was fairly well received. In all likelihood, this is the version being ported to the Gizmondo, and would have released should the hardware have maintained a market presence. MechAssault was the other major title Microsoft planned for the system. Unlike Age of Empires, this would be an entirely new entry to the MechAssault series. A proof of concept was sent to one of Gizmondo's development studios, signaling that the project would be handled in-house, with assistance from the Microsoft MechAssault team on creative direction. Something similar was done for Nintendo with another MechAssault game releasing on the DS around the same time the Gizmondo version was expected to debut. It's unknown if the two games were connected or exclusive games to each respective platform. Unfortunately, not much else is known. The final game in this deal was Rare's It's Mr. Pants. This game was originally in development for the Game Boy Advance as Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers. However, Rare and Nintendo ended their relationship partway into the game's development after Microsoft acquired Rare. Rare kept their game but lost access to the Donkey Kong IP, so Coconut Crackers was rebranded as It's Mr. Pants. THQ picked up distribution rights and released it in 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. This puzzle game was mostly well-reviewed and later received a mobile port. The port to the Gizmondo would likely be a fresh build and direct port of the Game Boy Advance release. Ultimately, no information about any of the Microsoft games in development for the Gizmondo has come to light outside of the initial announcement and some leaked concept art. In October of 2004, SCI announced their strong support for the platform, with 12 games expected to ship within the first year of the system's life. Of the 12, only Richard Burns' Rally was released. Between the partnership announcement and the system's demise, 6 games were confirmed to be in development, which we will be covering in a moment. The other 5 were never officially announced, and as of this video, no confirmation on these titles has surfaced. The rumored games are Constantine, a tie-in based on the 2005 movie of the same name. It released on several platforms, including mobile in 2004. Highlander, which was part of the planned Highlander online experience. It never released on any platform. The Italian Job, which was based on the 1960s movie of the same name. It released on the PS2 and PC in 2001 and was moderately reviewed. Reservoir Dogs, which was yet another movie tie-in. It released on the PS2 and Xbox in 2006, and the Gizmondo release likely would have released around the same time. It wasn't well received and was banned in a few countries. Had it came out, it might have been problematic for the platform. One of the Gizmondo's planned selling points was the onboard GPS and mandatory SIM card required to access anything on the system. Combined, it promised to allow parents a discreet way to track their child's every move without the child knowing. A game receiving blowback from parent action groups may not have been great for a platform that planned to target children via their parents. Finally, there was Urban Chaos Riot Response, an action shooter that had the player clear out cities infested with gang violence. The game was originally developed by the now famous Rocksteady, and would have been interesting to see on the Gizmondo if it had in fact been planned. So what about the games we have confirmation on? Battlestation Midway was a major undertaking with releases planned on multiple platforms including the Xbox 360, PC, and this portable version. The single-player experience is a story-based wargame much like Medal of Honor. However, here you'll always be controlling a craft by air or sea. The version that released were all well received, and the Gizmondo's, well, it was said to be incredible, and a potential killer app by those who had hands-on experience with it. It's estimated from those who had played in previews leading up to the intended launch that the game was nearly finished. Of all SCI games to have a confirmed build on physical media, this is the only one not to have been dumped or even publicly acknowledged as being in someone's possession. Carmageddon is an iconic racing game loosely based on the Mad Max and Death Race universes. The developers even tried obtaining licenses to use each of these properties, but it didn't work out. This racing game rewards points for running over pedestrians, something quite controversial upon its release, causing censorship in a number of regions and outright bans in others, including Brazil. The Gizmondo port was deep into development by the time the system was discontinued, and like the rest of the leaked SCI games, this one has been made public due to the promotional copies that were sent out to help gain retail orders. Overall, it's a solid and playable experience, with the dumped version considered essentially complete. The SCI deal had 2 games from the Conflict series announced together, which seems like an odd move considering it was unknown how they would perform on the platform. Conflict Vietnam and the slightly older Conflict Desert Storm 2 would both be ported over. These were designed as top-down real-time strategy shooters by a company called Pivotal Games. Okay, I want to be clear here as it's technically a port, though if you stripped away the branding, you wouldn't know that these 2 games were connected in any way. If you've played these games before on a home console and are expecting the same experience here, you're going to be let down. With that said, I'm happy to report that what's here is executed well enough to be enjoyed by anyone who likes this kind of game. The only major issue that jumps out is that Gizmondo's digital D-pad is ill-suited for this style of game. Oddly enough, this was acknowledged internally to be an issue early on. The original system was designed by Richard Dickinson. The name may sound familiar as he's also responsible for the iconic ZX Spectrum design. The initial unit was designed in 2003 when the only real competition was the Game Boy Advance. By the time the release window hit, Sony's PSP was on store shelves and offered quality of life improvements not seen on other platforms. The Gizmondo was intended to be cutting edge, offering an experience no other handheld could, and the PSP certainly hurt the selling point. The revised Gizmondo unit would again do things not seen in any other handheld device. Improved industry-leading hardware, twin analog sticks, an impressive widescreen, and dual rear touchpads. A system revision full of features not seen in another handheld until the Sony Vita released 6 years later. In a move I'm sure shocked and horrified Tiger Telematics investors, the company announced this revised system would be replacing the original unit the year after launch. This in itself may not have been shocking, but announcing this a full 4 weeks prior to the system's launch in North America sure the heck was. Even searching articles from the week of this announcement, the common sentiment was, Tiger doesn't want you to buy the Gizmondo. Ultimately, the revised unit never released, and Tiger declared bankruptcy during the North American launch period, stopping it. Returning to Conflict Vietnam, it's another game that was fully complete yet unreleased. I recommend checking it out if you have the ability to play Gizmondo software. Conflict Desert Storm appears to not have started any meaningful production, but promised to be more of the same. Pivotal Games released 6 titles before shutting their doors, 5 in the Conflict series, and The Great Escape, which is based on the 1960s movie of the same name. It's a game developed when the stealth genre was popular and leans heavily into that standard. It wasn't well received upon release in 2003, so likely not much was missed here. Nothing about the Gizmondo port is known, but it's interesting that 3 of Pivotal Games' releases were tapped for the Gizmondo. And of the one that we have access to, it's a fully new experience from the top down, rather than a simple, watered-down port. The final SCI game we're going to cover is Total Overdose. It released on Xbox, PS2, and PC in 2005. A port to the Gizmondo was announced as part of the SCI deal's second wave of games. It was a third-person shooter that received lukewarm reviews. No other information about the Gizmondo port was ever released. One interesting bit about the game's developer is that they later released Chili Con Carnage for the PSP. Many people view it as a remake or sequel to Total Overdose. I think it's very likely that Chili Con Carnage is the game plan for the Gizmondo, and when that system failed, it made its way over to the PSP. Blood Bowl is an interesting one, as it's commonly cited as in development and later cancelled. If you look up a generic list of unreleased games on the Gizmondo, you'll find Blood Bowl there. However, there is really no evidence to support that. In fact, the one item that seems to be the source behind this claim is a video leaked from Warthog Games showcasing what looks to be an early reimagining of the popular Warhammer Blood Bowl series. Warthog was purchased around this time by Tiger Telematics, with all their projects being refocused exclusively to the Gizmondo. Dan Magioch has since confirmed that the video, along with another Warhammer 40,000 proof of concept, was nothing more than part of a pitch that attempted to gain access to the IP for future game development. So, no, the game was never in development for any system, let alone the Gizmondo. Ghost was announced as a Gizmondo exclusive, but no details have ever emerged. That's about it. Goal is another game I was able to confirm but hit a wall when searching for additional information. When I first saw it listed, I was sure it was a relaunch of the original Goal series first seen on the NES in 1989. Looking into it further, this was clearly not the case. The original developer of Goal was TOS, and they're still around making games. This one was developed by a group called Factory 1, a company I could find zero information about outside of the official press release announcing the game's development. So we really know nothing. However, I did learn of one oddity, and that's of a movie with the same name released in Europe in 2005. What really piqued my interest outside of it having the same name stylized in the same exact manner is it features a scene that takes place in a Gizmondo retail store, so maybe the game was based on that movie. As it's clear some deal was in place. Ultimately, we really just don't know though. That's it for now, but it's not the end of the series. Up next is part 3. Until next time, thank you for watching Retro Impressions.